Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna let it rain.
That might help. Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to everybody. It feels like it's Sunday to me. I don't know why. It's probably because it's Labor Day and everybody's here and everybody's off work, you know. So it has just been crazy. Oh, Ashley, you better not be, girl. We'll be going down. We'll be going down there to visit. We'll be going down to visit you. And we'll probably be bailing you out. But welcome in, everyone. Happy Labor Day. It's good to see you guys. Hopefully you got out and you got to see some family, friends, or you just had a cookout by yourself or whatever you did. Hopefully you had a good day doing it. What the heck? Mia just growled in her sleep. Okay, well, she had a good Labor Day. Let me tell you, she sure did. She ran and she had fun and she did all kinds of things that they do. And I went to the pool and it was so peaceful. It was so nice. Everybody left the pool. Like, I don't know, maybe I stunk or something. But like, as soon as I got there was only 2 people there and one girl left. And then this other girl left like 20 minutes later. And I was like, this is the best Labor Day ever. Because Vincent won't go to the pool with me. He doesn't like water for some reason. He's just not a big fan of it. So I always go down by myself and do my crossword puzzles and relax and hang out. And what I did today, I had my headphones in and I was just listening in on some lives. And I was like, you know what, girl, take a break. Take a break from listening to stuff. So I took my headphones out and I just listened to, you know, the sounds that were around me. And I saw the ducks going to eat. Like they go the same time every night to the same apartment. It's these 2 ladies. They feed all the ducks, all of the ducks in the neighborhood, all of the mallards. They all go there. So anyways, but welcome in. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. Like I said, it's good to see it. Thank you. I did. I got to relax for a little bit. It has been. We're probably waiting. We're just waiting on new documents to come out or something. But as we do, we're just kind of going through stuff that we haven't went through. So that's what we're doing over here. But I'm up for any suggestions that anybody has on any cases. Let me know. Do I play? Is it mahjong? No, mahjong. Mahjong? I don't. What is it? Oh, solitaire. I don't. But I bet I would. But I bet I like it. I had to look it up really quick. And don't forget to put your you just said live chat, so that reminded me, Kathy. Don't forget to put your chat, which I don't have mine on all chat instead of top chat. That way you'll receive all the messages that are coming in chat. I don't know why they do that like that. That's so weird. But tonight we're going to go through, we're just going to go ahead and finish up the last 2 episodes. So part 3, part 4 will kind of be together, because they're shorter episodes than the last 2 nights. So we did part 1, which went over like the victims, the crime itself. We went over part 2, which was supposed to kind of go over, and it did, the investigation into finding Bryan Kohberger. But the guy that was on there last night, he was a hoot. He was saying everything backwards. And I mean, he was saying that like everybody was concentrating on the front door during this investigation. And when they weren't, they've been focusing on the back slider door ever since this investigation started. He was saying just stuff that was like wrong. And good thing, you got me here. You got me here to like pause it and let y'all know when something's going on. So thank you guys again for being here. Like I said, if you guys don't mind, take a second, hit the like button if you want to. If you hit the dislike, if you dislike it, but don't do that. That's not nice. But if you do appreciate the content, I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. That does help a lot. I do want to let you guys know, as I'm getting my my little banner here, that I did post on the Patreon the 48 hours episode. I know there were some people that couldn't get it. So I went ahead and it was 2 hours, 2 hours, like 1 minute or something, but I posted it over there. At the end, it might have, where it looks like it's going into another episode. It's not, it's just like they're just like talking at the end about just not even anything to do with the case. So, I was like, then I clicked off. So, but if you want to see that, it's over there. So tonight we're going to go through part 3, part 4. Part 3 has the guy from, was it something confidential? You'll know when you see him. I can't think of his name. Josh Ritter. It's right there on the screen. So I like him. I thought that we had listened to this one before, but I had listened to this one before because I was like, this sounds familiar. So I went back through the last 2 that we watched, but we didn't watch this one. So we're going to watch this one tonight. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into it. Like I said, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. We'll go ahead and we'll play the video. I'm not going to pause it too much, but I will pause it for commentary. And, if something is said that's interesting or, not right, maybe incorrect, we know now like what the correct, version is, I'll correct it. But I shouldn't have to do that too much. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. Oh.
Joshua,
that they weren't living high-risk lives.
Look, just fast forwarded all the way to the end. And this is on podcast version if you guys want to listen to this the podcast version, but we do have the video version as well.
So Joshua, shortly after his arrest, Coberger was extradited from Pennsylvania to Idaho.
Oh, sorry. Let me slow this down. I was listening to these a little bit fast earlier.
He was held without bail.
Sorry.
And it was in early January that an Idaho judge issued a sweeping gag order related to this case, which for a long time kept the details of these murders shrouded in secrecy. So explain for listeners about that order, what it meant, and why it was put in place for this case.
Yeah, the gag order kept the case shrouded in mystery, and it also led to a lot of conspiracies, I think, surrounding the case. I mean, this was one of those cases that, of course, is going to get national attention. You're talking about just a nightmare scenario of 4 college students being murdered in the middle of the night. And for a long time, no one was captured. No one was apprehended. So it just really caught everyone's attention. After Coberger was finally identified and arrested, soon thereafter, the judge did put a gag order in place. Now, it's not entirely uncommon for judges to make some sort of order about what the parties involved are allowed to say to the media. They're trying to make sure to control the amount of attention. They're concerned about a potential jury pool. They don't want that jury pool receiving too much information, and then everyone has made up their minds and they're all biased before they head into court. So there was that concern. I think this was amplified, though, with the amount of media attention that the case got and the small kind of close-knit community where these murders took place. In Moscow, Idaho, it's a college town, and this was absolutely enveloping that entire town in coverage on this case, and they were concerned that they wouldn't get an unbiased jury. That all being said, the order was very strict. It involved not only the parties, not only the attorneys, but the witnesses, the victims' family members. It was everyone who seemed even tangentially connected to the case was not allowed to talk about it. And so that led to, like I said, a lot of speculation from people, a lot of kind of conspiracy theories starting to mount up. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it helped all that much, to be quite honest.
We should think of this, like we should do a live and think about what was the wildest conspiracy out there. Like, who was it or what was it? I mean, because we've had a lot of people coming in and out of this case. I don't know. William at the end, he was pretty up there.
Now, Coberger was indicted by a grand jury in May of 2023, and he declined to enter a plea in court, leading the judge to enter not guilty pleas for the charges. What do you make of that?
I'll tell you what I make of it real quick. He's a coward. He knew he was guilty, but he didn't want to say it.
That was odd. I can't think of the last time I've seen that before. Apparently in Idaho, it's not required that the defendant actually enter a plea. The judge then did enter a plea on his behalf. It seemed like it was more of a formality than anything, but it added to the kind of mystery and, surrounding this case that we didn't even hear his voice for a long period of time. In fact, other than a few short comments he had made, I think that he was completely silent in court up until the day that he took a plea. So at the end of the day, I don't think it changed all that much, but it did certainly add to the mystique of the case that we didn't even hear him open his mouth during that first important arraignment hearing.
Idaho attorney Ann Taylor served as Coberger's lead defense attorney, and Bill Thompson led the prosecution. What do we know about these two figures and their respective approaches to handling this case?
Starting with Bill Thompson, he's incredibly experienced. He's seen as kind of a local legend in being able to handle the more complex and important cases. And it's my understanding he has handled many cases involving murder where the defendant is looking at the death penalty. And I think he was tasked as being the one most appropriate to handle a case of this magnitude. I mean, I think it's certainly an arguable point to say this is the largest case that's ever come out of the state of Idaho as far as from a criminal perspective. Ann Taylor's also incredibly experienced as well. She is, it's not every public defender is qualified to handle death penalty cases. And she is one of the few in the state of Idaho that is qualified to handle these types of cases that are very serious and involving the most serious of consequences. And she's also very busy. We know that at one point she was asking for more time from the judge to review the voluminous amount of discovery in the Coberger case. And the judge made the point of saying, well, listen, you've even picked up another death penalty case since the time that you've had this case. So if you're trying to tell me you're running out of time, you obviously have enough time to take on other matters. And it was, a little bit of a jab at Ann Taylor, but I think it highlighted just how busy she is and how qualified.
I'm going to find out right now while we're listening to this, who her other client. I want to know who her new client is, if we can figure it out, because I want to see if she's like what she is, saying in that case to try to get him off, of I guess murder. I think it's a death penalty case. So yeah, 2 DP cases in one. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Qualified she is.
Being a criminal defense attorney is a hard position, and you are often hated by the community. Was there a type of public backlash in this case in particular, which was so horrifying and Such a shock on the community. Did Ms. Taylor suffer any type of public backlash that you know of? And also, did Mr. Thompson, because in accepting in Coberger accepting the plea deal, eventually it made a lot of people angry. What do we know about that sort of sentiment?
Really good point. This case was, very important to a lot of people. People had extremely strong feelings about this case because it is such a tragic loss of life. And you are talking about young people who had their lives robbed from them in a very brutal way. Ann Taylor is also not a person who is shy from making arguments. She made every imaginable argument in this case, and her zealous advocacy of her client, I think, did lead to some backlash. She was criticized, not so much in the media and mainstream, but more on things like X and other, social media outlets and on YouTube, podcasters. I think people really took aim at her. Part of that, like you said, is going to be because she's representing someone who's seen as a monster and has done this really evil and awful thing. And that the defense attorney, unfortunately, is always going to receive a little of the backsplash from all of that. But then also because she was so aggressive and did not leave any stone unturned, I think a lot of people interpreted that as maybe she was fighting too hard. I will say this, as a defense attorney, that's your job. You're supposed to be zealous. You're supposed to leave no stone unturned. And she felt like she was fighting for her client's life because he was facing the death penalty.
When we're done with this, I found an article from Idaho Statesman. I forgot I subscribed to them. I need to stop subscribing to people. But I'm glad I did because they always have their articles on over a paywall. But yeah, her new client, wow. He's something else. His charges are nuts. I'm still reading up on it, but I'll let you guys know after this is done. We'll go to that.
Bill Thompson also, many people applauded him and was happy with the work that he was doing. I know that the families were becoming a little frustrated with how much time it was taking to get to trial. But then he as well was kind of on the receiving end of some backlash because of the plea. Many people watching this and anticipating and waiting for over 2.5 years for this to go to trial were upset with how it all ended because they felt like, listen, if we're going to have the death penalty, then this is the type of case it should be reserved for. And they were bothered by the idea that the prosecution would, at the 11th hour, remove that penalty and allow Bryan Kohberger to take a plea. As a former prosecutor, I'm sure you and I can understand there are many reasons why you would want to do that, including the fact that he was waiving his right to appeal, avoiding a long and exhausting trial. And we all know trials are not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that they would have got a guilty out of this. I think the evidence was strong. I think they would have, but there's no guarantee. And there's certainly no guarantee that even after a guilty verdict, they would have secured the death penalty anyways. So I think from the prosecutor's perspective, they had many reasons for accepting the plea that they did, but still many people looked back on it and thought it wasn't the right thing to do just from kind of their own moral and emotional perspective on the case.
Coberger ultimately waived his right to a speedy trial. How does that impact the strategies, or did it impact the strategies of both the prosecution and defense here?
It's not surprising that he waived his right to a speedy trial. And in a case of this complexity and magnitude, and when you're talking about the death penalty, his attorneys are going to want every minute that they can possibly get. The only thing that they have at that point in their favor is the fact that they can, to some extent, control the clock, and they need time. They're behind the 8 ball immediately. The prosecution has all of the evidence. They've been doing all of the field work, and the defense is just in a constant state of playing catch up to try to figure out what is the evidence against them. Plus, they had many motions they wanted to file and many things they wanted to argue. And in fact, the defense still wanted more time. They were asking for more time up until a few days before Coberger entered into the plea. So it's not surprising that he waived time. Usually you'll see that strategy deployed in a case where the defense might feel they can catch the prosecution off guard if they try to rush to trial, but this was certainly not one of those situations.
Early on, the Leda County Prosecutor's Office announced their intent to seek that death penalty. What do we know about Idaho's legal framework in handling capital punishments? Were there any unique aspects of applying it in this state?
Well, one interesting thing that occurred during the course of this trial was that Idaho actually ran up against some difficulties on whether or not they would actually have the ability to enforce the death penalty because of the issues with the drugs and chemicals involved in lethal injection. So Idaho went about changing their laws to allow for a firing squad to be an acceptable means for execution. Then they went about spending, my understanding is, millions of dollars on upgrading their facility where these firing squads could take place.
Yeah, I told you guys this, I think it was last night, but the gentleman that like did the work, I guess the handiwork for the firing squad, I don't know, puts them together. He's fired up, no pun intended, about Bryan Kohberger not getting the death penalty, because he's like, and I agree with this. I agree with him when he says this. What other case is going to be brought forward to you that is going to be death penalty appropriate then, right? Because if you kill one person, oh, well, no, 4 people died over here, you know, got off. 2 people, nope. 3 people. Like, he just was like, it's just opens the door for more, you know, people to do bad things and expect that they're not going to get punished in Idaho for it. So I don't know.
And it was everyone's belief that all of this was done almost entirely in anticipation of this case, that this case was so.
They have Chad Daybell too that they want to execute, and they got like 8 other people, not just Coberger.
So important, and that they wanted to pursue the death penalty. And Idaho is one of those states that takes this type of stuff very seriously. They're not a state that just has the death penalty on the books for the sake of it. They're a state that wants to enforce these executions. And it looked like they had every intention of making sure that if Bryan Kohberger did receive the death penalty, that that would be an actual thing, an actual execution, for lack of a better word, that he would actually see one day. And so it was surprising for many other reasons, but that in particular, that they finally did agree to allow him to plead to something without the death penalty on the table.
How significant was the role of forensic evidence, particularly DNA, in establishing probable cause?
Well, I think you could say that but for that DNA, but for that touch DNA on the button snap, on the knife sheath, this case may never have been charged. I mean, you could perhaps see a scenario where they may have been able to figure out that Bryan Kohberger was involved maybe weeks and months down the road through other investigative work. But the only reason that they were able to apprehend him as soon as they did, and it wasn't all that soon, we're talking weeks later, was because of that DNA. If they didn't have, and the whole case then rested on that DNA. The whole case was about what are the chances that a person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath of a alleged multiple stabbing, what are the chances that that same person would drive a vehicle similar to the suspect vehicle they were looking for? What is the chances that that person would not have a rock solid alibi for 3 o'clock in the morning? What are the chances that that same person would have their cell phone found, you know, multiple times within the 100 yards of the location of the murder home 4 months prior? All of this is circumstantial yet corroborating evidence of the DNA. So in my view, the whole case rises and falls on that DNA. It's that important to their case.
Talk to us about some of the defense's attempts to dismiss the case and their arguments for.
I mean, they had, if I guess if they didn't have the knife sheath, if they didn't have the knife sheath, I think that would have been pretty bad. I mean, just my personal opinion. They would have his car, but I don't remember seeing a very clear picture of a license plate on that car. They'd have his phone, but his phone's turned off, right? Like, I think it would take some time to get to him if it did get to him. But because I was gonna say, but if they have the sheath and they just didn't have the like DNA, I think they would have figured out who it was. I mean, through like the Amazon purchases and all of that stuff.
doing so.
Well, getting
And
back
then
to
the
our
re-
discussion on
and
the
then going
DNA,
back to repurchase it, that was kind of dumb to go back to and almost repurchase the same item, which I'm wondering if he was going to try to commit another crime. If that's why, I mean, because why wouldn't you just purchase the sheath? Why would you purchase the knife and the sheath? You're still going to have one knife without a sheath, right? If that's why he was purchasing it, that makes no sense. So he was purchasing it to do something with it. I think that he got rid of the other knife and he had this knife and sheath, or he was going to get this knife and sheath again, but he just didn't. Now, do we know why? We don't know why. But I want to know where the knife sharpener is, right? He bought a knife sharpener. Those, I mean, they can be small. They could be small, but I mean, normally you don't need to sharpen a brand new knife, right? Like that's something I would think that he would have kept back at his apartment. I don't know.
their first attack, and I think it was seen as being their best strategy, was they had to do something about this DNA. So they either had to get it legally thrown out of court, or they had to provide some sort of innocent explanation as to why their client's DNA was there. So much of their motion work ahead of time was trying to get this DNA thrown out. And they tried to attack the use of the IgG technology used in this case, and the involvement of the FBI, and the use of certain genetic websites, ancestry websites, and try to say that all of that was improper. When that all failed, now they had a real problem on their hands. They also made motions for presenting an alibi. They made motions for presenting alternate suspects. And all along the way, at every opportunity, they were trying to fight the death penalty and get that kicked off of the table. So, like I said, it was an exhaustive amount of work on the defense part. And I think the reason why we saw the plea take place when we did is because they had really exhausted all opportunities. They really tried everything that they could to present some sort of affirmative defense in this case. And when they finally lost that motion to present an alternate suspect, an alternate perpetrator, as it's called in Idaho, I think they ran out of options. And I think Ann Taylor turned to her client and said, "What do you want to do?" And I think that's why we received the plea deal as late in the game as we did, and as quickly as we did.
She also asked for a venue change, which was ultimately granted due to concerns about media coverage and juror bias. Is something like that difficult to secure in a case such as this one? We've covered.
Well, and she also sent out jury questionnaires.
Many judges that are
so they were kind of
over their venue, and they say, no, this is the community where it happened, and we will find an unbiased jury, and it's not going anywhere. Here it was granted.
Yeah, you don't see it all that often. It does seem like attorneys are starting to request it more. I think that might be a side effect of the amount of media attention the cases are getting nowadays, the way that people consume media. It's not just kind of your local newspaper, but you're getting it through social media and online and everything else. And they just felt like, because for some of the things we discussed earlier, because this was such a huge case with so.
You can clone like DNA and make more of it. I don't know if you can with skin cells. I'm assuming you can. We were talking about it last night, and they only need a manogram of your DNA in order for them to do a test. So that's approximately anywhere from 5 to 30 skin cells. And there are like heavy shedders and light shedders. So it just depends on if you're a heavy or you're a light shedder, like in general.
So much media attention taking place in a relatively small and close-knit community. There was a feeling that they just simply could not get enough jurors who had not only just not heard about the case, but not already formed opinions about the case. And they did extensive surveys too, to try to present that to the judge. You're right. Judges are reluctant. They do want to keep these cases in their local jurisdiction because they say, listen, this crime was committed here. The community here should have a say in it. But ultimately, and I think probably the right decision in this case, the judge decided to move it to a larger county, a much larger county, several hours away though, however, to allow for a potential jury pool that would not be as affected as the community in Moscow was.
And as you said, on July 2nd of this year, Coberger ultimately pleaded guilty, an action that prevented the case from going to trial and ultimately spared him the death penalty. What does that tell you, either about the strength of the prosecution's case or the defense's position?
I think it tells you more about the defense's position than it tells you about the strength of the prosecution case. I know a lot of people have looked at this and said, well, wow, that really means the prosecution didn't feel they had a strong case. I don't think this is really an indication of that. I think this is a realistic assessment by the prosecution of the strength of their case. It was a strong case. They had a lot of corroborating and circumstantial evidence, and they had DNA placing him at the crime scene, touching the sheath of the knife they believe was involved in the murder. That's a very, very powerful case. Then they've got other evidence, him searching for the knife online, him searching for what we believe to be a replacement knife and sheath online within days of the murder. This is a good case. This is a case any prosecutor would want to take to trial. But any prosecutor also knows there are outliers and things can go sideways and things can go poorly for you. And sometimes even with the best case going in, it doesn't end up how you think, and nothing is guaranteed. That's always got to be part of your equation and your decision making. Also, this was a case that was going to be bifurcated. In other words, we would have a guilty phase and then a penalty phase. And at the end of the penalty phase, it's not a given that this same jury would say unanimously, we vote to put him to death. It could be one juror who says, I just can't do it. And now you're left with a person who's going to go to life without parole instead of the death penalty. So taking all of that into account, I think the prosecution, it wasn't so much a choice about, do we have a strong case? It was a choice about, is this a good deal? Does this serve justice? For the defense, however, I think because we heard about them entering into this plea so late in the game, I think it is more of an indication of how they felt about their case right before trial was set to begin. Early on, they were trying everything. They wanted to present an alibi. They wanted to present alternate perpetrators. They wanted to attack the DNA. They did everything that they possibly could to mount some sort of defense. And when all of that failed and the walls came completely closing in and they realized they were going into a trial that was going to be very unfavorable to them and likely a jury that would be inclined to give him the death penalty if he was convicted, I think they had a very serious conversation, and it was a plea where they felt like this is about saving your life at this point, not about winning or losing.
Now, as part of the plea deal,
That's absolutely what it was. I think Anne was like, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Do you have anything else I can try? Like, I think she sat down and had a little conversation with them, like a one-on-one, just a little one-on-one, laid all the cards out for him and was like, this is what we can do. And maybe he slept on it overnight or whatever, gave him a couple days. And then he was like, yeah, asked to get me a deal, something like that. That's what I think happened.
as you mentioned, Coberger waived his right to appeal. However, Judge Hippler noted that Coberger still has the right to file a notice of appeal, and he cited the Supreme Court case of Garza v. Idaho. Talk to us about this technicality and whether it gives Coberger any leverage moving forward.
Yeah, the judge made these offhanded comments in court, and it really lit a lot of people's hair on fire when they heard this, because everyone's saying, well, I thought he had no right to appeal. What are we talking about here? The case in Garza really talks about a very specific idea, and that is, was it ineffective assistance of counsel for attorneys to not even file a notice of appeal where a client has waived their right to appeal? And the court felt that not even filing that paperwork, which preserves the ability to appeal, that was ineffective assistance. So the judge was kind of saying, well, listen, according to Garza, there is still some gray area here as far as his rights concerning appeal. But in practice, in actuality, and the way that we should be thinking about this does happen quite often where defendants will waive their right to appeal, and they're doing exactly that. There are some small things that survive. In other words, if you can show, like in waiving any right, If you can show that it was not done willfully, intelligently, then you can say later on, hey, I was deceived. I didn't know what I was actually entering into a plea. Putting all of that aside, this is going to be a rock solid situation where he's not going to have a right to appeal. So I think the concerns that may have been launched by the judge making those offhand comments are not entirely validated. If he ever attempted to appeal, if in other words, he got the paperwork together, he put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and sent it off to the Court of Appeal, the first thing the prosecution would do is file his waivers of appeal, and that would be dismissed outright.
Coberger was not required to provide a motive for the killings. And that had a huge impact on the community as well as many of the victims' families. Why wasn't a full confession required in a case such as this one?
Of all the things I think that the prosecution deserved a little criticism about, it was probably this. They can, in these plea negotiations, demand things. They can say, we want to sit down and we want to get some answers. They don't have to, but I think this was one of those cases where why the family members who were upset about this plea deal were most upset was because we didn't have many of the answers. The idea that the prosecution was sitting in court during his change of plea and talking about everything that the prosecution knew, and that still included many holes, like we don't know where the murder weapon is. I'm thinking to myself, well, the man who knows is standing 12 feet away from you. Why don't we know? Why haven't you asked them? And they could have done that. Now, their reason for it, and I don't think it's something that should be dismissed out of hand. It's a good reason. Their reason for it is, why should we trust anything that comes out of this man's mouth? Even the judge said, any answer he could provide is not going to be satisfactory to us. It's not going to make sense because end of the day, there is no good reason to take the lives of 4 innocent people. So whatever he could have said might have been just more self-serving to him. And who knows if we could have believed it. But I think that the prosecution probably should have asked some things like, why did you target that house? What connection did you have to these victims? Did you intend to murder as many people as you did when you entered that home? Where is the knife? Many questions that are still mysteries that unfortunately will probably remain mysteries from now until he decides to speak.
Joshua, you were in Boise at the time of Coberger's sentencing. What was that day like, and what sentence did Coberger ultimately receive?
I have sat through many, many sentencing hearings as my time as a prosecutor, and they're always very difficult. They're always highly emotionally charged. This was something I've never experienced before. First of all, the amount of strength shown by these victims' family members was just profound. These are people who've suffered a loss that is unimaginable. It's really hard to wrap your head around what they're going to live with for the rest of their lives. And the fact that they're able to put one foot in front of the other and wake up every single day is astounding to me. And then to have the strength to go into court with the entire world watching and pour out their hearts and talk about the loss and the pain that they've experienced. And then for some of them to turn and look him straight in the eye. I remember when Steve Goncalves turned that podium and looked and stared this man down, the man that had taken his beautiful girl from him, stared him down in court and told him what exactly he thought of him. And Olivia Goncalves, who was Kaylee's sister.
Ladybug, that was a fake video. That was a fake video. That video was fake. It was put on. I've told this story before. It was put on by Joseph Morris. He has over 600,000 subscribers. At the time, he had a crap ton then. He took an audio from a domestic violence incident, inserted it into a call, and said that it was from the Banfield and that it was Kaylee screaming that. So no, that was completely and utterly fake. That was so fake. His name is Joseph Morris. If you want to look him up, I mean, I'm just telling you, he still does true crime. The guy's sick. Like, yeah,
again, we've heard her words many, many times. Were incredibly powerful.
So that's probably the call you're thinking of. It was a fake video. It was a fake call. I mean, it was from a domestic violence incident. Some woman that her voice was recorded for a 911 call. She's screaming because she needs help. And I don't know how he got a hold of it, but he did. Probably for you something. I don't know. But he put it together I didn't know that people could even do that kind of stuff. I was still very new to YouTube, and I was like, what? Because I didn't even play that call on my channel. I didn't even I was like, nope, this doesn't feel right. Something's off about this. I don't know. Good thing I had intuition, but yeah, he did it. So, yeah, it was that guy, Joseph Morris. I think that's his name. Yeah.
So to me, the resounding strength of these family members was really breathtaking. And it was one of those things where, you know, we all knew what the sentence was going to be. The judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive, what they called fixed life sentences in Idaho, which essentially means life without parole. When they say life, it's a fixed sentence of life. So he has 4 consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 10 years for the residential burglary. But he's going to go to prison for the rest of his life. And the judge sentenced him to exactly that. And that was no real surprise to anyone. But it was just incredible to be there. It was the emotion and strong feelings in the air were palpable. And even his family was there. They didn't say anything, which I think was appropriate. But they were there, and they are, you know, as well victims of Bryan Kohberger, and that their lives have forever been changed by his incredibly evil and selfish actions. So it was quite an experience, and I'm glad that I was able to be there for it.
Final thoughts on how this case was handled, or on anything about this case and its impact.
Yep.
You know, many times I wonder about the cases that we cover, and you try to figure out why are they important, and why do they catch people's attention, and why do we feel that it's important to cover them? You know, in some cases it's obvious, it's involving celebrities or it's involving political figures, and it makes sense as to why there's this public interest. A case like this, I think the reason why is because it really strikes at the core of our absolute deepest fears. I mean, here you have 4 beautiful young people at the cusp of starting their futures, at the very beginning of becoming adults and starting their lives. And for parents, that is a wonderful and scary moment. And you send them off to college, and you worry about them, and you want them to succeed. And to have that robbed from them in a way that they weren't living high-risk lives, they were having fun. They were having a college experience like all of us had. And in the middle of the night, this coward and this monster comes in and murders them brutally. And then to find out that the person who did it, the person responsible, is not some multiple felon, violent history type person. He's not some person who's been in and out of the prison system. He's a person who is pursuing his doctorate in criminology. He's a person that would not land on the radar. He's a person that comes from a background that there's no clear, obvious signs of what created this monster. When you put all of that together, it really is the stuff that makes nightmares. And I think that's why we're so intrigued by it. It is important because there was a tremendous loss of life, and that is always important. But I think it really scratches at that part of our fears that is the deepest, darkest inside of us that we fear most.
I'm muted. I was like talking to you guys. I wanted to show you this because I forgot Ickamil covered it. So I think he plays the call too. So I want to see if that's the same one that you guys are like remembering, because this is like a big thing. This is like a whole thing that you guys might have not even known. Like it might have you might have heard the call. You might have even seen a Facebook post from on Enon Harsh or whatever his name is. So, okay. There's a Scream video that comes out that's fake. But people at first don't know it's fake. When I first heard it, I don't know. I was like, you're going to hear it that well from this. I don't know. I guess I was I don't know. I was more hesitant because I'm more hesitant when it comes to a lot of things. So, especially when it involves this case. I don't know why, but I just was. So somehow Ickamil found out where the call originated from. The call came from inside the house, pretty much, basically. So he shows how he even like did it. Like, I think he shows in this video, like how he like overlaid the that part of the video, but we'll listen to see if he plays like the scream part or whatever. So you guys know. And if you don't know who Icamel is, he's a very funny creator. Everyone should be subscribed to him. I'll have to drop his link. I'll have to go over to Facebook because this is over on Reddit. It says important video exposing YouTuber who fraudulently fabricated a scream video. Oh, and I forgot to say about Enon Harsh. I'm sorry. I skipped that part. Okay. So then like the next day or a couple days later after the scream came out, right? Enon Harsh gets on his little Facebook and says, yeah, I heard a scream last night. Well, what he did was he edited his last post. And if you like go in and you go under inspect and you put in some codes, I don't know how to do coding. Don't ask me how to do it. You can see where he literally edited that post. Like, I mean, it was insanity. These sleuths on the internet, I mean, some of these sleuths be sleuthing. So, okay, let's see what Mel has to say. There's the scream. Okay, I think he doesn't want to play it like, maybe he just doesn't want to play it like loud, but yeah, that's as loud as it goes, but it's pretty loud.
You want to make sure you watch this entire video because I have multiple things to show you.
Was that it? Was that the video? Was that it? Because I mean, because if you saw it all play out like that, that makes sense. Because you know what I mean? Like you hear the scream and then you see the scream in the Facebook message. But if you don't see where people went and was like, hold up, and then they went and they debunked it, you know what I mean? It would be easy to miss because I can't even remember who debunked it. But yeah, that's the scream video. And it says like, stop it, leave me alone or something like that. And he debunks that. I wonder if I think he just debunks that. Oh, look. Oh. He even changed this article. I don't even know how do people do this stuff? I still don't know how to do this stuff. I would never do this stuff. But he changed like the whole article. And it's from like Daily Mail or something. He just picked an article and he changed it. Like, it was crazy. Let's see.
This whole part here does not exist. What I suspect.
Okay, so we're going to go back.
To be honest, guy that wrote the article replies back, yes. Fake news, yes. Tampered. Another thing, I went and pulled up the article as well myself. I pulled up the exact portion that this guy has where it says Moscow Chief Police attends. And it has this whole thing. You can pause it and go back and forth if you want. This whole part here does not exist. What I suspect this guy did was on this second line here, he added the first line. So if you go back here, you see on his fabrication, these two parts, the victims and the three women, that's combined together. It's supposed to be separate on the original article. He combines them together in the second line, and then he replaces the first line with the fake information that he wanted to put in. So I'm going to show you what this guy did. I've seen this many times online. I watch these YouTubers that expose scammers, and what these scammers will do is they'll edit the HTML on a website on the person's computer. So you're not actually changing what the website says. You're only changing it on your end locally through the web browser. So let me show you. So you click here, right? I'm going to modify the second line here, and I'm going to add the first line like this guy did.
Oh, that's right? Where you went to.
You go to right click, inspect, and then on the line that's highlighted, you right click and you hit edit as HTML. And here you have the line, the text line of what this guy, what the article says. And so I'm going to add the first line like this person did, Joseph. Okay, come here, add in the line, put a little space. And let's see.
It's crazy. Look at that.
Now look what it says.
Look at that. That is insanity to me. I mean, I just don't know how, oh my goodness. But man, ICMO hasn't exposed anybody in a while, but neither have I feel like. We haven't done any debunking videos in a while. And those used to be some fun videos. Okay, so let's go back over here. So we were talking about while we were watching this video, we were talking about Ann Taylor's other client. Well, I guess he already went through his trial and everything, it looks like. But the guy is like, what? So let me see where I can get you the right here. There's Ann with him. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. Look at it. Oh my, look at him. He looks like a nice fella. I would take him home to meet my parents for sure. I'm just kidding. Face tats though. I mean, one face tat maybe, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 5. That's a lot. That's excessive. So his name's Skylar Mead. The prisoner charged with murder in the death of a North Idaho man stood silent as Second District Judge Michelle Evans asked him how he pleads. Look at her. She again. I mean, I don't know. I would get like, that'd be old, you know? That'd be old. Look at that member for 2 months. Mama, thank you. Oh, thank you for the $4.99. I appreciate that. Missed you too. Love you, girl. Don't you be leaving us for very long. We'll come find you. We will. We will always find you. And I did put Ikamel's channel in the chat. I'm going to put it in there again. He's a pretty funny creator. Like he does things differently. I don't know. I like him. I have no problem with Mel. I think he's a good guy. So this guy, okay. The 32-year-old was accused of killing 83-year-old James Money of Yoletta while he was on the run after ambushing a Boise hospital. Wow. A grand jury indicted both Mead and Nicholas Umpire, who police said helped him plan the ambush. The murder charges in June. Police said the 2 suspects were involved in a second homicide in North Idaho, though no charges for that death have been filed yet. This guy was last seen walking his dogs and was shot in the head. What the hell? And then his body was later found in a desolate area about 30 miles northeast of Lewiston. Should they take his body? I don't. But they intend to seek the death penalty. He probably didn't get it because I don't think he's on death row. I don't remember seeing him, and I would remember seeing that face. That face, I'd remember that. I don't remember that in the. Oh, that was a tattoo on that side of his cheek. So he has some more. He has all above his eye too. 1, 2. I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on the face. Wow. 8 on the face. That's sad. You know, I mean, he's represented by Ann Taylor. Look, they got her picture from when she was rolling in for Coberger. It said, who is also representing another high-profile suspect, Bryan Kohberger. It's crazy. She was doing 2 death penalty cases. I don't know. That guy's pretty scary looking. I ain't gonna lie. That guy was pretty scary looking. I mean, I don't think I'd probably be intimidated around him because I don't get intimidated around people. But those face tats, man, I'd be like, where'd you get them? Prison? I mean, did you pay for all those? Because I mean, tattoos are expensive. I'm just saying. Tattoos are very expensive. Okay. So this is the last in the it says True Crime podcast. That's why I keep saying podcast, but the videos that we've been listening to. She is talking with a victim's advocate today, and she just talks about how the organization it works and what they do for the families, and they talk about the families during the sentencing and stuff like that. So we'll go over all this. Her house looks very Victorian or something. I don't know how to explain that, but you can tell me what you guys think. Like Victorian? I don't know how to explain that. That look, but I like it. So, okay. Hopefully this girl will give us a little more pizzazz this time. Talking about, I forget her name now, Courtney or something like that. That's not her name. I can't think of it. Someone will put it in the chat.
We have been trying to get.
Oh, and before I play this, sorry about that. It's probably pretty loud. If you guys don't mind, hit the like button, that'd be great. If you could do that, if you appreciate the content. If you don't, hit the dislike button. I mean, either one is, it's good for the channel to have either one, but just don't do the thumbs down. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We do talk true crime daily here on the channel. So
in front of the media and in front of podcasters on a larger level to help them understand how to interview and have really good victim-centered stories and how to work with victims without harming them further.
At the center of this tragic story are 4 innocent victims whose lives were mercilessly cut short. Madison Mogen, Kaylee.
I don't know why it's like this for like a couple minutes, but it is. Don't mind that. I don't know.
Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. The news of Bryan Kohberger's plea deal sparked mixed reactions among the victims' families. Members of the Goncalves family expressed their frustration and disappointment with the deal, saying that the lack of a trial failed their family. Others, such as the Chapins, supported the deal, believing that it spared them from having the trial hanging over the heads of friends and family. At Coberger sentencing, families were given the space to make their voices heard at the Idaho 4th District Court. Madison Mogen's stepfather, Scott Laramie, described the pain and grief felt by his loss.
First, we felt disbelief. Next, we felt disorientation. Then we felt grief overcome us. Our grief is compounded even more for the Goncalves, Kernodle, and Chapin families. We speak of hope and healing, and we do have hope and some healing. But the vast emotional wound will never fully heal.
Madison Mae Mogen, better known as Maddie, was 21 years old. She was a marketing major at the University of Idaho and a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. While in college, Maddie studied hard and made the dean's list every semester. She also had a notable work ethic outside of school, where she ran a social media campaign for the Greek restaurant at which she worked. She is remembered for her beautiful, bright smile and her ability to make those around her laugh. Members of Kaylee Goncalves' family, including her sister Olivia, her father Steve, and her mother Christy, spoke to the murderer directly at the sentencing.
I'm not here today to speak in grief. I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were 2 pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful.
You're not worth the time, the effort to be remembered. In time, you will be nothing but 2 initials forgotten to the wind. No visitors, nothing more than initials on an otherwise unmarked tombstone.
You are entering a place where no one will care who you are and no one will ever respect you. You will be forgotten, discarded, used, and erased. You will always be remembered as a loser, an absolute failure. And when those prison doors slam shut behind you, I hope that sound echoes in your heart for the rest of your meaningless days.
Kaylee and Maddie weren't just best friends, they were sisters. Kaylee was 21 years old. She majored in general studies at the University of Idaho and was a member of the Alpha Phi sorority. She was eagerly looking forward to a post-graduation trip to Europe that she was set to take the following year. After college, she had hopes of becoming a teacher. Her charisma and outgoing nature led her to touch the lives of many. She is remembered for her kindness and the happiness she spread. Members of Xana Kernodle's family, including her mother, Cara Northington, and her stepfather, Randy Davis, also spoke directly to the murderer while speaking about their faith.
Inevitably, you will stand before our Lord and will have to answer to him over the sins you have committed in murdering our children. I'm not going to share memories of Xana or any more of the goodness of her with you, because I do not want that to be in your head. I don't want it to be in your head. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve our good memories that we have.
I want to just be out in the woods with you just so I can teach you about loss and pain. I love God. I wouldn't take your life. That's up to him. But I guarantee you, you are weak. God, I would just give a moment, man, 5 minutes out in the woods. Oh, man. Ooh. You're going to go to hell. I know people believe in other stuff. You're evil. There's no place for you in heaven. You took our children.
Xana Kernodle was 20 years old. She was a marketing major at the University of Idaho and a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority with Maddie. She loved her dog, enjoyed going to concerts, and most importantly, spending quality time with her friends and family. She is remembered for her positivity, her welcoming nature, and her ability to lift the spirits of those around her. While the family of Ethan Chapin did not attend the sentencing, they took to social media to share some of their thoughts.
Finally, thank you, Ethan. You were only with us for 20 years, but you touched the lives of so many people. From the time you were a baby to when we dropped you off at college, you were an absolute joy and the glue that held our family together. We remember your smile, your laugh, how you kept us in check, and the many ways you brought happiness and light to any situation. There will never be another you. There would never have been enough time with you. We love you, miss you, and promise to continue honoring your legacy.
Ethan Chapin was 20 years old. He studied recreation, sport, and tourism management at the University of Idaho and was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. Ethan was a triplet and shared an incredibly close bond with his sister Maisie and his brother Hunter, both of whom also attended the University of Idaho. Before Ethan and Xana began dating, they were friends. Ethan is remembered for his athleticism, his carefree spirit, and his love for life. In shocking cases such as these, we must focus on the lives and legacies of those who were taken too soon, not the monsters who took them. Renee Williams, CEO for the National Center for Victims of Crime, joins me now to discuss the importance of advocating for victims and to explain how we can support and uplift them. Now, Renee, the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin happened in Moscow, Idaho, a small town. And almost instantaneously, the case garnered national attention. So for families and communities who are processing grief, the media attention can be daunting. How does the National Center for Victims of Crime help families navigate these difficult times?
Well, I want to start out just with the fact that you started by saying the victims' names, which is what we are trying to get so many individuals to do. The killer's name has been mentioned so many times, he's almost become a household name. I've barely heard anybody say these victims' names.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there, lady, because I just said the other night, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not going to do that, because we have normally in every case, in every single case that we cover, there's a transition. It goes kind of from the victims to the suspect, because whenever you get a suspect and then he goes to trial, she goes to trial, it kind of shifts the focus to that person, right? Whoever the killer is. In this case, I believe in this case, they have really kept the victims in the forefront. People know their names. People get angry when people say their names incorrectly. That's how much people know their names. I mean, I think everybody probably in this chat can at least, they know them on a first name, if not a first, second, like first and last name basis, you know? I feel like saying their names is, saying Xana, Ethan. When I say their names in my head, I'm going, which name should I say first, second, third? Because I never want to say the same person first. Do you know what I mean? Like in my head, that's what I think. I'm like, so if I said Xana first last time, I'll try to say Ethan, Maddie, Xana, Kaylee, or I don't know. I try to like, switch it up whenever I'm saying their names. But no, this lady is a little wrong there. I'm going to say no to her, because we really have tried to keep the victims in the forefront. That's why when we were just talking about the victims right there, I didn't put up any pictures of Coberger, because he doesn't deserve to be even seen. That's why when he was on the thumbnail, I was like, I'm going to put pictures up.
So thank you for starting with them, first of all. We have been trying to get in front of the media and in front of podcasters on a larger level to help them understand how to interview and have really good victim-centered stories and how to work with victims without harming them further. And then we do work with victims and
they should probably work with creators that are on a smaller scale. Normally, people that are on a larger scale, they know how to talk to victims' families. They've had some, practice with it. People that have like a smaller channels, maybe they need the help. I mean, I would say so. Look what happened in Sebastian Rogers' case.
Usually that comes to me directly. So we will work with specific families who are really struggling with the media and try to help them and give them tips and walk them through certain things. I am working with one family right now of a homicide victim, and a lot of it is making sure that their names are being said in the right rooms and that we're introducing them to the right people, but also that we're guiding them on what their rights are, what they don't have to talk about, that they're being appropriately prepped for any interviews and things like that.
And digging a little deeper, what are those tips? What do you share? What do they need?
So we always try to tell people how to prepare for an interview, to have little things that you might not think of if you are not used to the media, like have a list of questions that you're okay answering, have a list of questions that you're not okay answering, and stick to those and be firm. Know what you want to say about your loved one, have photographs ready. And we also, and it's sad that the onus lies with victims and victims' families, but it does. We try to coach them on doing research into the podcast that they're going to be on, into the reporters that they're going to be interviewed by, so that they have a general feel for how that reporter conducts an interview, and they can usually get a good idea of how a story is going to be put together.
So going back to these horrific murders in Moscow, there was a plea deal with the murderer, and it sparked mixed reactions from the families of the victims. And of course, there's no right way to feel, obviously. So how does the organization help families when a case doesn't conclude the way they'd hoped, or when families feel differently from each other?
I think that happens quite a bit in the criminal justice system, where a case doesn't conclude the way a family hoped. And we have been working on trying to help those families find healing outside of the justice system. The fact is that this Idaho case isn't unique for that portion of it. So many people walk away from the justice system because it's not set up to help victims.
They need someone in the justice system. So if they have questions, not a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists can't answer those kind of questions. Like, why did this happen? What's the percentage of, let's say, for this case, what's the percentage of, people that are getting the death penalty that they get a plea deal, like things like that.
Is set up to punish defendants and keep society safe. And so we try to work with victims on what other things can we do to help you heal, to remember your loved one, and to make you feel like you have achieved some measure of justice and closure. The pain is never going to go away. And, we say this a lot, but there's no timeline for trauma. So something might impact them in the long run, but at least helping them find some sort of outlet for that closure, because more often than not, it does not come from the criminal justice system.
And I think a nuance that is maybe subtle but fundamental with the criminal justice system is that the state is representing, or the prosecution is representing, the state, and the victims' families are not being represented by prosecutors. The victims in this horrific case, for example, are no longer with us, and that's the whole point. So I think that led to a measure of confusion, perhaps with the greater public, in that they weren't sure why the family's wishes weren't being honored, but it's because the prosecution is not representing them. And obviously further complicated by the families feeling different from each other about what that justice might look like in that moment. You mentioned a moment ago the rights that these families have. Can you dig a little deeper? What rights do these families or crime victims have, and how does it vary by state?
So every state has what we call a crime victims bill of rights. that looks different in every state. And so different states do have different, there's also a federal CVRA, we call it Crime Victims' Rights Act. One of the biggest rights that is enshrined in all CVRAs is the right to notification and the right to participation to an extent. And we were actually asked about this in the Idaho case because of the plea deal. Those families had a right to be told before it was publicly announced. Unfortunately, the right to notification and participation does not equate to a veto power. And as rough as that can seem, that is probably what's best for society. We would not want these families in this case. I mean, because my understanding is they were of split opinions as to whether or not this plea bargain was good. You wouldn't want to get the families arguing about that. And you also want to be able to trust your prosecutor to know what their evidence is, to know what they are trying for, and to have the ability to make those types of plea bargains.
One of the cases that comes to mind like that is the Chowchilla school bus kidnapping in Barrett. Just horrific and horrifically traumatic now for multiple generations. But again, that was dozens of families and families with multiple children. And so, of course,
Is she talking about when they took the kids and they like buried them or something in the bus? That was like in the 70s? I think that's what she's talking about.
there will be varying feelings about what justice looks like and in the choices a prosecution team has to make during the course. I hear what you're saying, that it would be far likely too complicated to be able to have a consensus, but each case is different. You know, there, like you said, there's some commonalities, but like each one is just such a different horror.
And every person, even in the same case, is very different. You know, we are all individuals and we all do have different feelings. I think in this case, personally, the plea bargain was a good thing because the horror of going through a trial, and there was already so much intense media publicity on this case, avoiding having the families have to walk out of the courthouse to cameras in their face every day. I think that was a good thing, but I can certainly empathize with the family who was against it, who did want to see the trial take place and to see him held accountable for something.
Well, may I ask you, given your vast experience with victims' families and having them navigate the criminal justice system and trauma, what did you make of the fact that the plea deal did not require an explanation of sorts? Now, the prosecution during the sentencing made the oral statement that the reason, or the judge, sorry, it was the judge that said, it doesn't matter per se because we can't believe this killer's words anyway, but it still that it removed the choice from the families of being able to make the call whether they believe that individual, and some of them argued that a very huge piece was missing and will forever be missing from their process of closure. What did you make of that?
I think that the judge got it right, that we first of all couldn't believe what he said anyway, but I think also that going through a trial isn't going to give them the reason either. This is just a depraved individual who is probably getting some perverse pleasure out of the fact that he can hold that secret. We see that a lot with individuals who commit crimes like this. There's also a pleasure in holding on to something and in toying with people. And so while I think it's disappointing, and again, I can empathize with those families, I don't think there was a way to force him to give a reason. And I don't think it would have been a good reason to hold up the plea bargain.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that a lot too. Polly Klaas's killer comes to mind, who continued to taunt her poor parents for years. So in the initial stages of this case, a lot of internet sleuths took it upon themselves to, investigate the crime. And as a result, many began making accusations against the friends and roommates of the 4 victims. A lot of fans in true crime community think that they're helping investigations, but sometimes this sleuthing can bring more harm than good. Talk to me about some of the negative side effects that this can have on families and friends of the victims.
I'm just going to say right now, because they're talking about internet people. I don't know how many times I've read an article on this channel and something's been wrong in it, and we've had to correct it from mainstream media. Or mainstream media has kind of went with a story and it was wrong, or a tip or a source or a sources, X source. So, I mean, I think that people get it wrong on both sides. I think it just depends on if you come out and you correct yourself afterwards. Like if you get something wrong and you genuinely, you didn't know, I'm not talking about disinformation. I'm not talking about people that put it out, purposely. I'm saying like if they accidentally, misinform something, if you come on, you're like, oh, I said something that was wrong. I think that it's fine. You know what I mean? But just don't make a habit out of it, I guess.
So I'm definitely not trying to give a shameless plug, but shameless plug, we do have a guide for crime fanatics that are it's the 8 simple rules for being an ethical, true crime fanatic. And one of the things we touch on is actually respect boundaries. And I know that you're not an internet sleuth. So you can tie up phone lines. Too many leads can be a bad thing if you don't genuinely know what you're talking about, frankly. But for the victims, it's also harmful because
she's talking about people that are not mentally stable, right? That's what she's talking about. Like the internet people that are calling the police with every tip, like my brother's son's friend's cousin told me this. We're not about that life.
Tend to judge them from a computer screen, and this is what we see a lot. And we tell the individuals we help all the time, do not go in the comments section. Avoid the comments section at all costs.
She should be telling this should be more for the subscribers. No offense to y'all, but some of y'all can be wilding out. But I mean, that's what she's explaining. Don't go in the comment section. The creators normally not in the comment section going off on their own. I mean, I guess they could be. I'm not in my comment section doing that.
Because people are cruel. And when we're watching something from a computer screen, we tend to think of how we would behave and how we would act and how we would answer that question. But we don't do it with the lens of how would I be acting if I was living through the worst day of my life? And we miss that. So a lot of times families will appear and they haven't slept for 48 hours. They're probably wearing the same shirt for 3 days. Their hair's not done. And they are having trouble forming a complete sentence because the amount of trauma and pressure is just so compounding them that we can't even begin to understand it, but we still feel comfortable making judgments. And I think when victims' families see that, when false theories start to speed,
people do that because they're behind a computer screen, lady. They do that. They would never do that in their own life. Like some of these creators, even the way they act on their channel, I'm like, if you act like that in your real life, then you should be locked up.
That can really ruin somebody's life. We saw that happen. I'm in Maryland, and we saw that happen here in Maryland with a case with hold on. I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah, no problem.
Not live. Rachel, do you remember who is Rachel?
The angel, the angel victim?
No, Rachel
Moren, the mother of 5 that was killed by the illegal immigrant.
Yeah, Moran. Rachel Moran.
Moran.
Catherine's double checking it. Rachel Moran.
I think that's who I'm talking about here.
I mean, that's why changed her name.
We'll go with it and just give me a thumbs up if
Rachel Moran, she says.
Okay, Rachel Moran.
Yeah.
So we saw that here in Maryland with the Rachel Moran case. Her boyfriend was immediately accused. And it's ruined his life, I imagine, because there were so many theories and people automatically pointed the
I'm not going to say nothing.
Finger at him, and it couldn't have been the furthest things from the truth. So he's here mourning the death of the love of his life, mourning the death of his girlfriend, and people are automatically assuming it's him and saying it loudly.
Okay, so you mentioned the rules. Tell us the 8 as they stand.
So the first one is the very simple premise that there is no such thing as victimless true crime. Mm-hmm. And that's just to remind everybody that if you're watching a true crime story, we don't really get intrigued by the financial scam stories. There'll be a couple, but that's not what's stealing the headline. We only really get intrigued by cases that have victims. And so it's just a gentle reminder to everybody that if you're really into a true crime story, chances are there's a victim involved and that victim's a real person. The second I already said, and there's no timeline for trauma. And that simply means it doesn't matter if a murder happened 30 years ago. You never know how trauma is going to trigger you as a human. And so be kind and be gentle to the victims that are involved in that story, because no matter how long ago it was, it can still impact them. My personal favorite, number 3, is investigate, investigate, investigate. And that is because as true crime aficionados, we look into everything. We are suspicious. We like to, I am frankly online dating, and I will pull a man's fact sheet before I go out with him. I dig in. The one thing nobody seems to investigate is the true crime they consume.
It does look like Meghan Markle.
So is the podcaster that you love or the true crime show you like, did they involve victims? Did they harm victims? Why are we even listening to them in the first place? So really have an understanding of what you're listening to and if it's ethical. The fourth is require the presence of victims' voices. Do not listen to a podcast if it is not every so often really featuring a victim, and if they can't say that they've spoken to the victims to decide if they wanted that story to go forward. The fifth is do no harm. And we kind of talked about that already. You don't need to have an opinion. Avoid social media.
She just said, wait, hold on. She just said something like, don't go forward with the story if the victims wouldn't want you to. So she wants us to reach out to the victims So do I need to reach out to Steve G, right? Every night before I go live? Because I know what I'm putting out there in the universe is okay. But I think she just said that. Hold on, we're going to go back.
Not listen to a podcast if it is not every so often really featuring a victim, and if they can't say that they've spoken to the victims to decide if they wanted that story to go forward.
Yeah, she did. Okay. You want people to bother the victims? Lady, I was all about that. Man, I was on top of this. I was ready. I was like, had my pen and paper. I really was. I was paying attention. I wanted to hear the 8. But that kind of threw me through a loop. Now, I understand if it's like, if you're going to put out some disinformation, right? But you know that as a creator, you know what you're putting out. And if people are like, oh, like all the time going, oh, I didn't know I was wrong about that. Like, really look at them. Like, and always check people's prior cases. See how they act on them.
Fifth is do no harm. And we kind of talked about that already. You don't need to have an opinion. Avoid social media. People don't need your opinion when they're going through the worst moment in their lives. And similar to that is respect boundaries. And that is number 6. 7 is don't fall victim to true crime. And that's an important one, I think, for everybody to consider.
We're going to go back again. Hold on a second.
Correct moment in their lives. And similar to that is respect boundaries. And that is number 6. 7 is don't fall victim to true crime. And that's an important one, I think, for everybody to consider.
But if you're not putting the stories out there and the victims' names out there, then no one's going to know about the cases. No one's going to know the actual facts of a case.
We know there's a phenomenon called vicarious trauma, and it's when you absorb so much trauma, you begin to behave as if you were traumatized yourself. I see it with my team at the National Center quite often. We put a lot of self-care in. We know that it happens with police. We know that it happens with beat reporters who cover true crime. Interesting phenomenon is we're starting to see it with people that consume true crime too much. So they're just absorbing so much that they're showing signs of clinical depression and things like that. So it's an encouragement to any true crime fanatic to know when they've had enough and to have the courage to step away from it and give themselves a break and be.
I said, take a break from it as I sit here with you all. Haven't had a break. Well, I can't tell you the last time I took a day off. I'm going to look it up, but man, it's going to take me a while. It's probably been like 6 months or so.
Very aware of their own feelings. Maybe a year. And then the 8th is turn your interest into impact. And we like to say, you know, there are billions upon billions of dollars being made on victims and victim stories. And so we just encourage folks to get involved in local victims orgs, find ways they can help, donate to victims organizations.
I do that. I haven't done it in a while because my sister no longer works for the Domestic Violence Coalition, but I used to donate clothes to her all the time. Toiletries, clothes, everything. Like, if I had it, I would give it to her, even things I liked. And I wanted to keep, I'm like, nope, somebody might need this there. Like, because they literally run from their house with nothing, right?
It's if you are watching these shows, know that money is being made off of them, and some of that are your dollars. So make sure that you're turning some of that interest into help.
How much can I get for like $12 that I'll make off this video? How much can I help with that?
Fantastic.
That's it. I think they're simple. We tried to make them simple.
Renee, I understand that the National Center for Victims of Crime experienced some budget cuts recently. Can you talk about what services are at stake and how the organization has been working with legislators to make sure the victims have access to the resources they need, or what alternative resources you might be looking toward to fill this gap and make sure victims' families are taken care of?
We did experience some cuts in April, and the great news is our most crucial program, well, what I view as our most crucial program, which is Victim Connect, our hotline, which is 24/7, completely free, completely confidential. That was one of the services that was cut initially. That was restored. The Department of Justice restored it within 2 days. There was no service loss, which was wonderful. We are a little worried about our partners in the field, because we do know of other services that have been cut. But as of right now, our services have, for the most part, been restored. We've still lost a couple of smaller programs, but our understanding is that the appeals are going well for some of our colleagues, and that the Department of Justice is being very fair in their reviewing of each grant as we move forward.
And how can listeners help with that? From my tiny slice of the pie, it seems to me that oftentimes local pods and molecules are so much more effective than national anyway, right? Someone far away sometimes feels far to have impact. So talk to us about how listeners can help, or what that local level looks like for them too.
I think that people have so much more power than they realize. And so any listener can pick up the phone. And I did not know this until recently. You can call your senator, and somebody has to pick up the phone, and they have to take down that note. And so you can be calling your local representatives. And I want to be very clear, this is not a political issue at all. NCVC is nonpartisan, but crime victims in particular have really always enjoyed the support of both parties strongly. And so it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you sit on. You can call your representative and say, hey, I'm concerned about funding cuts to victim services, especially if there are programs in your area, like Oklahoma took a very large hit. And so we have been working with some of those representatives to try to shore up those services. But calling your legislators matters more than I think people give it credit for. We still live in a democratic society, and they do want to hear from you, and they want to know how they can better serve you. And they have whole staffs that will do that. And so regardless of where you sit on the political fence, and regardless of who your representative is, they want to hear from you, and you should absolutely call them. And if you're worried about victim services, and if you do a little digging and realize a program in your neighborhood or your area got cut, let your representative know that you're concerned.
Yeah. Renee, thank you so much. I just want to give you another opportunity to just give any final thoughts on the victims' families as they remain in Moscow, Idaho, for listeners moving forward.
Absolutely. I think we learned a lot from the Idaho case about respect and compassion, both for victims' families and those involved in crime. And so this will undoubtedly happen again. And so I just want to remind everybody that the next time it does happen, keep in mind that everybody involved is a human, and they deserve respect, and they deserve your compassion, and they are going through the worst moments of their lives, and treat them with the dignity and respect that you would want if you were in the same position.
Okay, absolutely. I can agree with that. I could definitely agree with that, but we got a little lecture there, didn't we, Groovy Nikki? Got a little lecture from this one. The last guy, he didn't know what he was telling us. Now this lady, she's just telling us all the things. The 8 things for us to do. Well, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I'm just not. She was like, I mean, if she would have said like, don't throw conspiracies out there or something like that, I'd have been like, oh yeah, I can ride with this girl, you know? But she was just like, don't talk about it. Like, I'm sorry, but people on YouTube, for the most part, people that, okay, so there's not a lot of ethical true crime creators on YouTube, but the ones that are out there, there are some out there. We try not to put out misinformation. I love me some facts. I love me some facts. Misinformation is just hard to remember, you know, like I would feel like that would be hard to remember. Like, which lie did I talk about today? Or maybe they have like a board or something. And they have like, maybe it's like one of those detective boards, you know, and they've got like the lines going, like I told this lie, you know, last week. So we're going to go this way today. I don't know. It's just the truth's always easier. And plus I just like reading the documents to you guys and stuff. And I love it when someone tells me to go read a document. That's like my favorite. I'm like, okay, which one? I've already read them all, but okay. Someone was listen to this before I jump off here. Someone in the comment section, she was a doll today. What did she say to me? She said something that was so rude. Oh, this is what she said. Where did you get the pictures? Because I don't like your commentary. And I was like, I don't like your rude attitude. That's what I said. I said, I would have dropped her the Google Drive. She would have had them all in order. It would have been beautiful, a beautiful thing to look at. But I was like, I said, you're rude. And I'm never like that. I never like usually let the people that have those comments, I've been saving them up actually to do a live over it. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do on the second channel. We're going to do a live over that. Because I had some lady tell me, you think you're real cute, don't you? I did a short video. I'm in my bed. Like I'm laying like to the side, like, 'cause I always like lay to the side. And I don't know if you could tell that's where I'm at, but it was right after a live. So no, but I did look pretty cute. I went back and looked at it. I was like, but you did look pretty cute. So maybe I was feeling myself. But she was like, yeah, I don't know. I just have to pull them up. The comments, I have like a couple that like they'll hide your comments. So YouTube is really nice. YouTube will like pull certain comments. So like if they're really rude, they'll pull them and they'll put them in like it'll say like hold or something like that. But then like in your hold pile or whatever, it'll say view comments. And if it says view comments right there, you're like, you know, you got some bad comment. Like this is like super bad. Like it's not just held within like the first held box, it's held. And then they ask you like 2 different times if you want to view it. They're like, are you sure you want to see this comment? Like it's that bad. And I'm always like, yeah, I want to see it. Show me the comment. Oh yeah. She's still on the page there, but I'll remember them. I said I was going to do a live over this one time. And the girl that told me that I'm feeling myself and all this and that. Listen, Linda, don't put your picture on your YouTubes because I blew it up. And I was like, oh, don't you do that to me. All right, they don't have to watch, right, Trisha? I don't usually like. I don't really care like about the comments too much. I used to be really bad. Every comment would get to me. Now they don't. They really don't get to me because they usually don't say anything too bad, and it's usually like I can laugh about it. Or if it's really bad comment, I'm really laughing about it. And then most of the time, if it's not held and it's in like the comment section, you guys always say something. One of you guys will, and I think it's the coolest, cutest thing I've ever seen. When you guys take over me, I really do. Cause like sometimes I don't see them and I'll see like a comment. Like a lot of people say my intro is long. It's 3-minute song. I know it's 3 minutes. I guess that could be long, but I get that comment a lot and everyone's like, fast forward. I'm like, thank you. Cause you know, you can't like, it's not like they're on the live, so they can fast forward. He's going to hate. I know, must be jealous. Tell them that most people call that masturbation. I should. Her attitude would change. She needed some love. That's what she needed. Yeah, don't look at it. If you don't like it, yeah. I was like, well, I wasn't really, wasn't doing nothing that I normally wouldn't do. I was just like laying in bed, but I take a lot of my TikToks like that and my YouTube video, like my YouTube shorts, not my videos. I usually set up for the videos, but I was just kind of like lounging. And it was when we found out about the Bryan Kohberger, the inmates wanting to get a hold of him. And I think that's probably what really hurt her feelings was, that I was making fun of that. Thanks, Trisha. I appreciate that. I love it when you guys take up for me. I was in a chat the other day, and someone took up for something that I said. It was like, they were like, that girl stood on the truth. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. I did. I did. But thank you guys for being here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to go check on Vincent, make sure that he's getting ready to go to sleep. He's got work tomorrow. Actually, he just has to go to the computer, though. I was like, oh, when do you have to leave tomorrow? He's like, I don't have to. It's remote tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, gotcha. Just making sure, he's prepared. He's prepared. I'm more nervous, I think, than he is. But thank you guys for being here tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow, probably evening. If I can get a more afternoon live, then I'd like to do an afternoon live on the other channel. I always like to do a couple of those a month, at least over there. So, thank you, Elise. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad you caught it live too. Okay, good night, you guys. I will see you guys all tomorrow. All tomorrow. I don't know where that accent came from. All tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, and I'm glad that you guys spent a little bit of your Labor Day with me. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how.